So welcome to this introduction to the GESIS data services in the Meet the Expert series. This is part of a set of talks we give surrounding the data services. This is the general introduction, and there is more specific material, more specific information coming up in the following weeks that I will partially refer to in my talk. The GESIS data services mainly consists of two large areas. That is one, consulting and information on research data management. And the other part is services for sharing your data, which I will introduce in detail in this talk. So the main focus of what we do at GESIS, you probably know, is on quantitative social science data. That is mostly survey data gathered through surveys, but also social media data, partially textual data, other things. There are specific institutions that deal with, for example, qualitative data or discipline-specific data like psychological data, but we have a general aim at quantitative social science data here. And the data services consist, as I said, of two parts. One is our support for researchers to meet challenges of research data management throughout the life cycle of their projects. May it be a PhD project, a research project, and also to meet the requirements of funders. And we do this through offering advice and training on RDM topics, so general training, but also specific training, so you can book training sessions in your institutions on more specific topics, for example. And we provide information on RDM online. There will be a presentation on the training part of the data services later in this series. The other part of the data services are services that make your data fair. So you might know the acronym findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. This is mostly about making them visible, making them accessible, using formats that others can use. And there's a choice of 3 service packages, which I will go into detail on in this talk. And there's also a how-to guide with initial instructions. So before you contact us, and I will focus on the data publication side, there are some initial questions you might want to answer for yourself in the research project. First of all, do you hold the appropriate rights to publish your data? So if you do your own survey, that might be the case. You've gathered, for example, informed consent, and you're allowed to share the data. But are there any legal or ethical restrictions? Is your data very sensitive, or are you using copyright-protected material? The second question concerns file formats. You should be using file formats that are suitable for long-term preservation. So you might be using a software package like SPSS data. Those are more closed-shop versions of software solutions, but there's also R and other open source tools that are more suitable for true long-term preservation. But we can help you with these formats. The third question concerns the documentation. Is your data sufficiently documented? Meaning, can others understand how the data came about? That is at the core of the documentation. I mean, you want to find or make your data findable through a catalog later on, but then you want to make sure that people know if you had been using a survey, if you have crawled the data on a website, if you've bought the data maybe, you're reusing things. So this is very important, and you should be checking your material here. And the final question is your data clean and understandable? Clean in the sense, is it error-free? Are there still working variables in your data set? Are there things that shouldn't be shared, like rests of contact information, user IDs, or whatever? And is it understandable? So you might be working with your data and you know your way around the variables and all filters and also, but can third parties, can others make sense of what you've used in your data preparation? So if we look at this, we offer the 3 service packages I mentioned in the beginning you can choose from. There is, for example, Archiving Basic, which is a kind of self-service data publication. It used to be called self-archiving, but then we do a lot more than other platforms like Zenodo, you might know, because we check each data set that's coming into our holdings for flaws or maybe sensitive information. This is free of charge. So if you have a small project, your master thesis, whatever, you might be choosing this service package. Then there's Archiving Plus, which is more or less a standard data publication for larger studies with a fixed price. So this is already a for-cost service because we invest more into data when it comes in after if you choose the Archiving Plus version or package. And then there's Archiving Premium. This is based on Archiving Plus, but with a more extensive quality assurance and a documentation on variable level. Here the price depends heavily on the data you've gathered, the size, the amount of data that we are facing, maybe the complexity, and so we have to calculate the price, and it's on demand. And as I said, the packages are built on each other, so you get basic services in all three, but the higher the service level, the more we will check for quality. There's also an on-site access service through our secure data center. So if you've gathered very sensitive data, this might be something for you or your project, which is also a for-cost service and part of a separate presentation. Now I will present the service packages in a bit more detail to you. So the Archiving Basic holds storage of your file for at least 25 years. And this is bitstream preservation. So we preserve the files as they come into the archive. So if you've used a strange technical format, we will not touch it. We will make sure that the file is still there in 10, 15, 20 years from now. But we will probably not invest a lot of time or effort into transforming the file formats, but we can consult you on choosing the right format. And the difference between bitstream preservation and true long-term preservation is that true long-term preservation also focuses on readability and usability. Then there's an index check, as I've mentioned before, so we check if the file can be opened, are there any viruses, does the data make sense, does the data fit the documentation. We register the data, so you will receive a DOI, a digital object identifier for your data. There's a form to describe your data with appropriate metadata, supplementary information, and then we will publish the data via our repository. All data set that enter GESIS will show up in our data holding catalog, and the data holding catalog is search engine optimized, so we make sure that your data is truly findable. The second package is Archiving Plus, and here we invest a lot more time in the index check process of new data coming in. So we check if the variables are really complete, if there are any working variables in the data set. We check value and variable labels, for example. Do they make sense? Are there any information that we cannot assign to any question, for example, anything else you've gathered? And we check for missing values, which is also an important part, mostly in survey data, but then you also have data gaps in other data compilations. Then we really take care of long-term preservation by migrating formats to technical formats that we can not only preserve, and not only the bitstream preservation, but that are really truly understandable after 10 or 20 years. Since we're doing these services since 1960, we have quite some experience on this issue. And then we do a high quality, qualified study description for our catalog. And study here means a unit comprising of one or more related data files or documents. This is our term for what you could also coin database or data collection, but the study is a long-standing term and we are still using it. And these study descriptions will be in German and English. We'll also register your data, you will receive a DOI, and then we will publish the data and documents for download. Finally, the third package, Archiving Premium, is based on Archiving Plus, but then we do a lot more of quality checking when the data is coming in. So we test, for example, the routing. If you're familiar with survey data, then you might know that some questions are not asked not to all respondents, but only to some. And then sometimes mistakes happen in this routing, and then all people are asked this question that was only meant for a few. We do checks on substantive consistency. So did people really answer the questions that were supposed to answer? Or maybe they've answered something that doesn't make sense, or they have used patterns of answering your questions. And we check your data in case of multiple responses. Besides the study level documentation, the study description, we also document the data on variable level. So in the end, you will have one document electronically or physically that holds all information about the complete study. And here you have an overview of the three service packages. As you can see, the ingest checks differ in size and detail. The study description will be done by yourself in the Archiving Basic package and done by us in Archiving Plus and Premium. Then there's a difference in preservation levels from bitstream preservation to true long-term preservation, and also quality assurance from Archiving Basic to Archiving Premium. And data access is mainly through download after registration of the users, but also access restricted via a usage contract or through the secure data center, and all data will receive digital object identifiers, DOIs, in the end. So the recommendations about the services is that you check out our website, that you might take a course and learn about general RDM if you are involved in a research project and you have become the data manager, for example, that you contact us early in your project, and that you might want to work with us on your data publication before your project ends. Here's the URL to our website and a QR code, and I'm looking forward to your question. I thank you for your participation